So, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome former National Olympic weightlifter, president of the Emmy Award winning Narrative Television Network, highly sought after author and platform speaker, and author of The Ultimate Gift. So, Jim Stovall. So, welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you.
So Jim, firstly, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your competitive career in the world of weightlifting, as well as becoming an author, started?
Well, I grew up here in the United States in Oklahoma, which is right above Dallas, Texas. And as a young man, I had no ambition other than to be an NFL professional football player. And
Amazing.
I was an All-American, and I had the size and speed to do that. And the scouts for the pro teams assured me that it was just a matter of time until I made my living playing football on Sundays.
Yes.
And then in a routine physical exam to go play another season of football, I was diagnosed with a condition that would cause me to lose my sight. And I rapidly figured out there are no blind guys playing in the National Football League, and I decided that wasn't going to work for me, and my dreams were over. And shortly after that, I went to our state fair that we have here every year, and they had an exhibition from the previous Olympic team. And they had all the gymnasts there, and frankly, I went over to watch the girls, the gymnasts. And but after they were done, they brought out these weightlifters, and I thought, that's something a guy could do, even if he was losing his sight. And I became the national champion, and then finished my athletic career as an Olympic weightlifter. And then in my 20s, I did indeed lose the rest of my sight, and have lived as a blind person for 30 years. And after I woke up that morning and I was totally blind, I moved into this little room in the back of my house, Karen, and I thought I would never leave there again. I had this little 9 by 12 foot room, and I had my radio and telephone and tape recorder, and the thought of traveling around the world or running a television network or writing books or doing this interview with you seemed beyond impossible. And I sat there and for months and months, and before losing my sight, that room had been our television room. And one day, out of just sheer boredom, I put on an old movie, a Humphrey Bogart film I had always enjoyed, and I listened and for a while, and I could kind of remember what happened, and then. But then somebody shot somebody, and somebody screamed, and the car sped away, and I forgot what happened, and I got really frustrated, and I said, somebody ought to do something about that.
Yes.
And that was the beginning of the Narrative Television Network. We take movies and TV shows, and we add an extra soundtrack, helping people to hear what they can't see. And we say things like, Karen gets up and closes the door and begins the interview, things like that. And so that was the beginning of that, and we won an Emmy Award for our first season on national television. So
Wow,
I was asked to speak at the National Association of Broadcasters. And out of that, I started getting more and more requests to speak, and I found myself on an arena tour with Dr. Dennis Whaley and Dr. Robert Schuller, and the two of them really twisted my arm to go write a book. And that's how I became an author.
Amazing. So you've had such a diverse career, from one world of competitive weightlifting to becoming a national Olympic weightlifting champion, and then becoming an author and having the book or your book, The Ultimate Gift, transformed into a major motion picture. So how did this transition come about, and was this an organic process for you?
As in most things in my life, it happened. We go through our lives in this, we find ourselves in this utter chaos, and it seems like nothing makes sense. But then when we reach a level of success, we look back and we see this kind of divine order, if you will. And we realized there's no other way I would have gotten here. And, for me, I'm embarrassed to tell you and your listeners that when I could read with my eyes, like you read books, and most of the people listening to us do, I don't know that I ever read a whole book cover to cover. I was an athlete. I didn't think I had to learn or read anything, and that was my life. Well, after losing my sight, I discovered the National Library for the Blind, and I was part of an original test for compressed digital audio. And in this test, they wanted to see how fast people could listen to audiobooks. Well, I found there was something I could do very well, and I can listen to audiobooks at somewhere between 600 and 800 words a minute, depending on how technical something is. So I read a book every day. There hasn't been a day in the last 30 years I don't read an entire book.
Wow.
And becoming a reader made me want to be a writer.
Yes.
And so when the guys pushed me to write a book, I, sat down and wrote my story of, starting narrative television and becoming an Olympic weightlifter and the things that had happened in my life. And they put it out, and I didn't ever think there'd be another book, but it sold well, and the publishers wanted more and more and more books. And after 7 or 8 books, I had written everything I knew and a few things I only kind of suspected. So when they wanted another book, I figured I better make up a story. And that was my first novel, The Ultimate Gift, and it became a worldwide phenomenon. And there have now been 3 movies in that series, the trilogy, The Ultimate Gift, The Ultimate Life, and The Ultimate Legacy. And to date, I've had 8 of my novels turned into movies, with 3 more in production right now. As soon as we get past this pandemic situation, there will be more movies coming. And so, I wish I could say I had this master plan to do all this, but it was just one step at a time.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what would you say some of your biggest lessons that you've learned within your career have been?
That it's not about me, it's about other people. Everybody starts out and they want to make money. And Karen, the only people that make money, they work at the mint. They print dollar bills or euros or whatever the case may be. The rest of us, we have to earn money.
Yes.
And the way we earn money is by creating value in the lives of other people. So if you want more money or success in your life, don't ask, how can I make more money? Ask, how can I serve more people or serve the people who I serve now in deeper and more significant ways? And the answer to those questions is opportunity. And then along that same line, you learn that opportunity doesn't come labeled as opportunity. Opportunities come labeled as a problem. And the whole world is praying for a great idea, and they trip over one about 3 times a week. The only thing you got to do to have a great idea is go through your daily routine, wait for something bad to happen, and ask yourself, how could I have avoided that? And the answer to that question is a great idea. And the only thing you got to do to turn that great idea into a great business is ask one more question. How can I help other people avoid that? Because the world will give you fame and fortune and notoriety and everything you ever wanted in this life if you'll just care about other people and solve their problems.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about you being the author of the books that you've written, The Ultimate Gift, The Ultimate Life, and The Ultimate Journey, to name a few. I would like to find out, what was the inspiration and motivation for the books, and where did it come from? Because it's an incredible story. I mean, out of all the movies that I've seen and whatever, which there have been many, I must admit, I always reference back to The Ultimate Gift, because I think the lessons and learnings are just amazing.
Well, that book was an amazing journey for me. Like I said, I've written 48 books to date. That was the easiest and fastest book I ever wrote, and I had never written fiction before. I dictated that book, and as you well know, I am, you talk about computer illiterate. I don't know how to type. I write books I can't read that get turned into movies I can't watch. That's my life. So, when I decided to write that book, I wrote it, I dictated it in 5 days here at my company, the Narrative Television Network. In between my meetings and my phone calls, I dictated this book. And the way I dictated it over those 5 days is the way that approximately 8 million people around the world now have read that book, and many millions more have watched the movies. The idea came to me when I started my company here. I only had one colleague that worked with me, and she was legally blind. I'm totally blind. We were the blind leading the blind, and we decided we were going to create this thing to help people like us access movies and television, and it worked. And well, after a year or so, tragically, she got metastatic breast cancer, and it was terminal, and she was a single mom, and she made me the guardian of her then 11-year-old daughter. And
Wow.
Karen, what I did not know about raising a teenage daughter would really amaze you, because I was clueless.
Yeah.
But thankfully, my colleague Kathy, she had several years before she eventually passed away. And during that time, we spent many days together when she was in the hospital or recuperating. And she said, now, when my daughter gets to be this age, make sure she knows this. And when she starts driving or goes to high school, or when she starts dating, make sure she does this. And when she goes to college or gets married or has her own children. And so this concept came to me of someone passing along their wisdom after they weren't here. So I created this billionaire in The Ultimate Gift, Red Stevens, who late in his life realizes that his money has spoiled his family, and he has given them his valuables without giving them his values. And anytime you give someone valuables without values, it's like giving a loaded gun to a little child. It's a very dangerous thing. So that's where the idea kind of came from. And I used a billionaire because I wanted to dispel what I called the big lie. And the big lie tells us that if I just had enough money, all my problems would go away. And that's just clearly not the case. Yes.
I want to obviously talk about The Ultimate Gift, which I have to say personally impacted my life. It is such an incredible story, which was created into a major motion picture, which you obviously mentioned previously, which must have been such an honor, and changed the trajectory of your career. Can you share with us more about this?
Well, the movies, I am convinced that if Shakespeare or the Apostle Paul or Mark Twain were alive today, in addition to writing books, they would be making movies, because it is the communication system of the 21st century. Millions of people read my books, but on an opening weekend in theaters around the world, or now with the other digital platforms where people get movies, there are more people watch the movie version of one of my stories than ever read the book. So it has changed that in many ways, and the process of making a movie is quite fascinating, because for me, writing a book is a solitary activity. I dictate to one colleague here in the office, and that's the whole process. It's my story, my book, my everything, and I have some very talented people who type and edit and those sorts of things. But when you go to make a movie, my book turns into our movie, and literally hundreds and hundreds of people work on it. And they all put their creative stamp on it, and it becomes much more of a collaboration. And and I don't know that there's ever been an author more involved in the process than I've been. I was involved in casting and writing the screenplay, and then I play a part in each of my movies. In The Ultimate Gift and The Ultimate Life, I play the limo driver. There's a little scene in each of those movies, and the guy's got one or two lines. That's me as the limo driver, because I told the producers I'll play anything but a blind guy, and I knew they wouldn't make the limo driver a blind guy, so I became the limo driver. And then in the third film, we had a a limousine that Raquel Welch rode around in, playing her part. And there's only 2 of these Rolls-Royce limousines in the world. We got it from a car museum.
Wow.
And this one belongs to Prince Charles, actually.
Oh,
And
wow.
we were able to borrow this car for the day to make this scene in the movie. Well, I knew good and well with this multi-million-dollar car, there's no way they're going to let Jim, the blind guy, close to this thing. So in the third film, after being the limo driver twice, in the third film I became the bartender and
Oh, wow.
stood around in the bar scene. So I've been in all the movies, and enough to get to have that experience, but not enough to ruin the films, because you learn very quickly that people who make movies have tremendous talent, and there's a reason we pay them millions of dollars to do this, because
Yes.
they're good at it. And it's been a wonderful experience.
Amazing. So, having made the book into a movie, which is obviously a big challenge and a fine balance to portray the story and the message to the screen, can you please share with us um, how much influence as the author did you have in terms of the process, so that it comes alive in a truly authentic way, and stays still true to the writing?
Well, it is a different process. Now when I write a novel, I have a movie in mind when I do them, and the movies that are now in production are entitled One Season of Hope, Top of the Hill, and Will to Win, and those are historical pieces I've written that are motivational. But as I wrote the books, I was planning to make a movie, so those will be closer to the original book.
Okay.
J.K. Rowling, when she makes the Harry Potter
Yes.
books, you'll find those to be almost word for word the book and the movie. But in my original novel, it wasn't designed that way, so we had to go back in and make some fairly significant changes in the plot. It doesn't change the message or the outcome of the story. It's just that, when you turn a 200-page book into an hour and a half or a 2-hour movie, you have to make some changes. And then when the movie company called me and they said, we need tension and we need conflict in this. And I said, what is tension and conflict? They said, we need romance and danger. So I had to give Jason a girlfriend, and
Yes.
I had to send him on this thing with some scary drug lord people in
Yes.
Central America. And so that was, you have to make those changes because it's just part of the normal genre of making a motion picture.
Yes. So the movie, without a doubt, as I mentioned, is still one of my favorites. It's filled with so many lessons of love, loss, and compassion, and so much more, which is personally, as I mentioned, impacted my life. So as COVID-19 has turned our world upside down, how and what have you had to adapt during this challenging time? And how important do you think in these times is the ultimate gift and the powerful message it has still so relevant now more so than ever?
Well, it's a great question, Karen, and you can't talk about anything today without the backdrop of the coronavirus, and
Yes.
and as I look at it, I run 5 companies here. I do movies, books, television, my syndicated newspaper columns, and the arena events. Obviously, the arena events have gone away. Nobody's meeting in huge arenas to hear speakers like me. So we've started doing virtual events, and I did one last week with Steve Forbes, and we both agreed that while it's a bit of a challenge to get used to it, once you do, the thought of walking down the hall, going into my conference room, and speaking for an hour and a half to thousands and thousands of people around the world, and then we're done, That's amazing compared to 2 or 3 days on the road. So it is an amazing difference. And then when I look at my book and movie business, there's never been a better time to be in the book and movie business, because you have millions of people around the world who are sitting at home looking for things to do, and they can get books and movies. And I'm very grateful that a number of them are mine. And the same thing with my syndicated columns. And thankfully, we were deemed to be essential, so I'm here at Narrative Television. Our studios are downstairs, and our people have been very cautious and stay socially distanced, but we've continued our television production because the networks continue to produce programming. So it's been a bit of a mix among our 5 companies, but the biggest mistake I see people making right now, Karen, is a lot of people are just sitting around waiting for things to get back to normal.
Yeah, which is not going to happen.
Right. We're not going to go back to where we were. It doesn't mean we won't be in a great place. I think in many ways we'll be in a better place. But these days we have right now, this is an amazing time, because you need to look at all those things you want to do in your life or your business that you never had time to do, and now's the time. I have a list of things I do every day here in the office, and then I have a pending list I go over on the 15th of every month. And these things on the 15th of each month, these are things that I want to do, books I want to write, projects I want to do, contacts I want to make, but it's not time to do them yet. Well, I've gotten many of those done in the last 3 or 4 months, and then there's a couple of book projects I've always wanted to do that are much bigger than anything I've done. I'm writing a retrospective of the 20th century right now, and it's a big project with a lot of research involved, and now is the time to get it done. So what I would encourage people to do is look at this time that the virus has given us as a bonus, and you can emerge from this coronavirus with new ideas, new businesses, new ventures. It's a great time to be here. And, don't be one of those people just sitting around waiting for things to get back to normal, because that's simply not going to happen.
No, exactly. So in the motion picture, the cast in the film is absolutely outstanding. So what was that process like for you being part of the film? And the casting, and was this a challenge? And can you share with us more about this?
Well, I got to be very involved in selecting the cast, and the number one thing I look for when I look for someone to be in one of my movies, I look for someone that believes in the message and really wants to be a part of this project. That's really important to me, because Karen, I'm not in the book business or the movie business or the television business. I'm in the message business. And each of my projects are designed to deliver a message. And when I remember that and stay focused on the message, things work really well for me. When I get away from the message, we start struggling. And I try to stay with that. So first and foremost, I look for cast and crew that believe in the message and want to be a part of it. And then, I look for people that are team players that really want to be a part of it. There are people in the movie business that have outsized egos, and they make it very difficult to go to work. And because they think the world revolves around them, and people let them get away with that because they're movie stars. And I don't need that. I mean, I've worked with Academy Award winners. I've worked with top flight people. We've put them in our movies. They're great. But all of them are down to earth people. They'll have lunch with the crew. They're very kind to people. And this is very important to me, working with people, because it's a tough environment. You're working for 4 or 5 months, 6 days a week, usually 12-hour days, and living in trailers and difficult. I mean, people think it's glamorous to make a movie. I got to tell you, it is hard work. It's boring. It's tedious. It's difficult. Yeah. So, basically, I look for people that believe in the message and really want to be a part of making something that is going to be a part of their legacy. When I hired James Garner to be Red Stevens in the trilogy.
Mm. He was amazing.
He had already read the book previously before I called him, thankfully. And, you know, he said, I've been making movies for almost 50 years. And he said, this will be my last movie. And he said, this says what I want to say as I leave the stage. And I felt, okay, this is my guy right here. And then we built the rest of the cast around him.
Amazing. I mean, even the little girl, you know, like just everybody's character was right on point. So really amazing.
Abigail Breslin is a genius. We were trying to hire an 8 or 9 year old kid to be in this part, and we were coming down to the wire, and we couldn't find anybody. And we had tried a couple of girls, and I wasn't comfortable with them. And she had made one movie before this one.
Wow.
And it wasn't even done yet, and she agreed to come make our movie. And well, then while we were making our movie, her first movie came out, and she was nominated for the Academy Award for Little Miss Sunshine, and we had her in our film. Everybody in Hollywood thought I was a genius. I was just desperate trying to get somebody. Yeah, she's amazing. And then after she did our movie, she went on Broadway to play Helen Keller. And that was an amazing experience because she and I stayed in touch, and because she had to learn how to be a blind person. And that's one thing I'm really good at. So she's quite a young lady.
Amazing. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been?
Oh, I think I go back to helping 13 million Americans and millions more around the world, blind and visually impaired people, access movies and television. Most of the people listening to us now, thankfully, can watch movies and television, and it's the number one recreational activity and learning tool in our society. Well, if you're one of these millions of people because you're blind and you cannot access that, something like narrative television is a game changer. It opens all kinds of worlds for you. So I look to that. That is one of my bigger things I'm really proud of. And then everything else kind of came out of that. You know, I'm proud that The Ultimate Gift is taught in several thousand schools as part of the curriculum, and you know, the books and you know, everything I get to do. And like I said, they are all just vehicles to deliver a message, and I remain in the message business.
Amazing. So I want to talk about leadership, which is obviously such a big subject right now, or lack of leadership. So what would you say makes your leadership style different as an entrepreneur? And what do you believe needs to be done better to change the current narrative, both from an entrepreneurial and global perspective?
Well, when I was selected as Entrepreneur of the Year, the Wall Street Journal, which is one of the leading business publications in the world, they sent a reporter to spend a week here and shadow me and write a story about it. And he was really shocked, and he said, I am surprised. He said, Jim, if I didn't know you owned this company and you were in charge, I would not think you were in charge. I mean, because he said, all you do is walk around and ask everybody, what are you working on and how can I help you? Yeah. And I said, well, that's my job. I mean, it's not my job to boss people around. I have great people. They know what it is they're supposed to do. It's my job to help them get it done. Because I believe if you get the right people in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing for the right reason, everything else falls into place. Yeah. And my people are absolutely passionate about who we are and what we do. And all I have to do is help them. And leadership is not a matter of having a title or stripes on your uniform or something, and you run around and tell people, I'm the leader, follow me. A leader is someone worthy of following. Yes. And if you want to be a great leader, just be a great person and let people follow you. And then realize that a leader is a leader all the time. Yes. You'll be known for a lifetime of great things you do or a couple of lapses in judgment. We see every day people that have a tremendous legacy of leadership, and then they do something stupid in a moment, and they ruin that. And you've got to remember, a leader is a leader all the time. You don't get a day off when you're a leader. People are always looking to you. And, we live in a world, Karen, when it's all said and done, there's an awful lot said and very little done, and
Yes.
people are sick of hearing about it. They just want to watch it.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a leader, go out and be someone worthy of following.
Yes, absolutely. So your passion for philanthropy and humanitarian causes is inspiring and unwavering. How and where did your passion for this start? And making television accessible for 13 million blind people is incredible. So how did you achieve this?
Well, I learned many years ago that there are three things we can do with our time, our talent, and our treasure. We can, every bit of money that comes to us, we can spend some for today, we can save it for tomorrow, or we can give it away. And we need to do each of those three things with part of every money that comes into our hand.
Yes.
And in the world, we're doing a great job of spending. Most people are spending more than they have.
Yes.
And then we have countless people and books and things, courses that are out there that tell us how to invest our money. But
Yes.
very few people ever get proactive on giving their money. And it was 40 years ago, Karen, I was in a chapel meeting at the university I attended, and they had a guy come from Africa to talk about his nonprofit organization. They dug water wells so that the people in sub-Saharan Africa would have clean drinking water.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the presentation, they took up a collection to help him with his work. Well, at that time, I had $17. That's all the money I had in the world, and it was in my pocket right there. And I decided, okay, I'll give him $1 of my $17. And just before the collection basket got to me, the president of the university said, somebody here in this vast auditorium needs to hear this. Either give your best and expect the best, or keep your money. You're going to need it. So one of the hardest things I ever did is I took my $1 bill out of my hand, put it back in my wallet, and I got out a $10 bill. That may as well have been $1 million.
Yeah.
And I threw that $10 bill in to help that man. Well, at that point, I had a date that night with Miss Crystal, who has now been my bride of 39 years. But at that point, we weren't quite a couple yet, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And I was already wondering, how am I going to pull off a $17 date? Now I realize I've only got $7, and that ain't going to go very far. And I'm trying to make an impression here. So I said, well, I got good news, I got bad news. The good news is I helped that man with his water wells. The bad news is we're going to have a $7 date here. And she said, well, why don't we just eat in the college cafeteria and go for a walk? Well, we did that, and we ended up, Karen, in an empty classroom. And then she asked me a question I'll never forget. She said, what do you think we're going to do when we get out of college? Well, there had really never been a we in any of our conversations, so I took this as very encouraging.
Yes.
So I could still see a little bit. So I get up on the marker board and I wrote down things. And I said, I'm going to start a company, and I'm going to have my own company, and then I'm going to make $1 million, and then I'm going to write a book, and then they're going to make a movie. And I wrote all these things down. And the last thing I wrote down, number 12, is someday I'm going to find something I care about as much as that man cared about those water wells, and I'm going to give him $1 million.
Wow.
And that's pretty bold for a blind guy with $7 in his pocket. But everything on that list happened. And it was last year I went back to the university, and Crystal and I gave them $1.5 million to launch what is called the Stovall Center for Entrepreneurship. And we help young people around the world come to college and learn how to be entrepreneurs and have their own businesses. And we have sent over 500 kids to college with scholarships, and we have fed 1 million people or provided 1 million meals in Haiti, and we have done amazing things. And all of my goals surrounding money for the last 20 years are not about how much money do I get. It's about, I have a goal now to give away this certain amount of money. Because trust me, if you can give away $1 million all at once, you're doing real good yourself. I mean, Crystal and I haven't had to worry about money in many, many years. And all of our goals relating to finances have to do with projects we want to give away more and more money.
That's amazing. Wow. So as the President's Committee of Equal Opportunity selected you as Entrepreneur of the Year, which must have been such an honor. How did this come about, and did this open other doors for you within your career?
Well, yeah, it really did because, when the president names you Entrepreneur of the Year, everybody wants to do business with you and learn more about who you are and what you do. And
Yes.
that began my relationship with a lot of top business people in the world. And that's been a very, very good thing. It's like having a best-selling book or an award-winning movie. It just it kind of endorses you and what you do and brings a lot of credibility to you. And as entrepreneurs, we turn nothing into something. That's what we do as entrepreneurs, as you well know.
Yes.
We have an idea and we try to bring it to life. Well, we're always fighting for credibility. Because we're not some big business when we start. We're an idea. And so anytime you can get recognition from anywhere, it really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve Forbes, the president and CEO of Forbes magazine, said that you are one of the most extraordinary men of our era, which is an amazing endorsement. How did this opportunity and experience come about, and how did this impact your career?
Well, I met Steve Forbes in 2000. He was doing a book called Great American Success Stories, and he found 12 success stories. Then he wanted to profile them in this book, and he decided that I was one of these 12 success stories, and we became friends through that. And he has written the foreword to several of my books and endorsed others, and he actually played a cameo part in one of my movies, played himself, and I cautioned him at that point, don't give up the publishing business because your acting career is pretty limited. I got to be honest. And but he's a great friend. We did an event together last week. It was scheduled to be a live event, two nights at the Performing Arts Center, but due to COVID, we weren't able to do that. So we did an online event that has gone all around the world now, and we're really excited about, just the ability for he and I to have our dialogue and our conversation about what's going on. And if you or any of your listeners want to watch that, it's absolutely free. And it was shot here in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And all you do is go to tulsatownhall.com, TULSA, tulsatownhall.com, and you can watch this conversation I had with Steve Forbes about Corona, where we are in the economy worldwide, and some ideas about where we might be going.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'll definitely check that out. Thank you. So you were also chosen for an International Humanitarian of the Year award, joining the ranks of Jimmy Carter, Nancy Reagan, and Mother Teresa, which is an incredible honor. So how and when did this opportunity happen for you? And can you share with our audience more about this experience?
Well, this is an honor they give out every year with a stipend of several $100,000 to help you with your work. And in my case, it was for making television and movies accessible to blind people, and just to be honored along with, as you said, Jimmy Carter, Nancy Reagan, and then I received it the year after Mother Teresa.
Wow.
And she was an amazing, amazing person, to say the very least. And I think if we're going to be honored for anything, maybe the best thing to be honored for is what you do for other people.
Yes.
And because I've long believed, Karen, the most fun you'll ever have with money is giving it away. I promise.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I never would have believed that before, but another house, another car, another plane doesn't really excite me.
No.
But to make a difference with other people, and just recently, as I said, for the last 30 years, we've given scholarships, and we've sent 500 young people to college.
That's
well,
amazing.
Last year when we funded the Stovall Center for Entrepreneurship, they did a worldwide search, and they found this Dr. Kevin Schneider to come and be the director of this. And I was backstage with him when we were going to announce he had been selected. And, and he was very emotional. He said, Jim, I have to tell you, you have changed my life. And I said, Dr. Schneider, I appreciate that, but I didn't pick you for this job. The university picked you. I think they made a good selection, but they picked you. And he said, no, you don't understand. He said, 24 years ago, I was a struggling college student, and I ran out of money, and I was getting ready to drop out of school, and I went over to the post office to turn in my key to my post office box, and there was one letter in my box, and it was a letter from you, and you gave me a scholarship so I could finish my education.
Wow.
And here we are 24 years later, and now I am the head of the Stovall Center for Entrepreneurship.
That's
and that,
amazing.
just really, put a parentheses around my motives for giving and, efforts in, humanitarian projects.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that leads me to the final question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and what legacy would you like to leave?
Well, the 3 pieces of advice, people, if you've ever heard me speak, read one of my columns or anything, the 3 things I always want to make sure people know is, number 1, you have the right to choose.
Yes.
And you are who you are and where you are in every area of your life because of the choices you've made.
Yes.
And we live in a world where we like to blame everybody else. But unless or until you and I are willing to take responsibility for where we are, we can't blame our past on someone else and then claim to be in charge of our future. And, life is a do-it-to-yourself proposition. And we don't always start out at the same place. Hey, I realize bad things happen. You're talking to a blind guy. I get it. But we have the right to choose. And for every person defeated by a condition or a circumstance, I can show you someone else that used that same circumstance as a springboard to change their life. So first, you have the right to choose. Secondly, you're one quality decision away from anything you want. Success is all about that decision. Your mind is the most incredible creation in the universe, and it will bring you anything you want. And until you make a decision you want to do something, it will bring you excuses for why you don't do anything, so you feel better about yourself. But the minute you tell it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to create a business, I'm going to become wealthy, I'm going to make a difference in the world, I'm going to give, your mind will then change and it will start finding ways to do this. And it is just that simple, but nothing happens until you do that. And then the third and probably the most dynamic concept I have ever discovered is you change your life when you change your mind. Everything you'll ever do and know and have and create and give away and leave behind as a legacy is based on the fact that you change your life when you change your mind. And that can happen while you're listening to this conversation right here, just that quickly. You can just sit there and think about that big dream you've always had in your life and say, yes, I'm going to do that. I don't know how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, who to do it with. I don't know where to get the money. I don't know anything about it, but that is worthy of me and my best efforts. And if you will do that as you're listening to this conversation, your whole world will change. 20 years from now, you'll remember today. You won't remember anything I said, but you'll remember that's the day I said yes to the big dream. And once you do that, the world changes because the world belongs to the woman or man who has changed their life by simply changing their mind. And, when I think of my legacy, I always remember I'm in the message business, and I would love to leave people with that message. Jim Stovall passed this way, and through his books or movies or columns or speeches, I heard him speak, and I found out for the first time I could change my life by changing my mind, because there's nothing more sad and disparaging than people who have the power, they have the creativity, and they don't realize it, and they never did anything.
Yes. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, Jim. I so appreciate it. And if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
Jim Stovall, Stovall, JimStovall.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. And in all of my books, 48 titles, 10 million books, my phone number and email address is in all of them. And I answer all my calls and return all the emails. So you know, I'm easy to get a hold of. And Karen, I want to thank you for an opportunity to speak with you again. You are, you know, when my books come out, I do hundreds of these interviews, and most of them are a drudgery to get through. And you care about your subject, you do your homework, and you're just simply a delight to speak to. So I thank you for today, and I look forward to our next time to do this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.